Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Hey, welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. My name is Sean, and I'm grateful you're listening today. It's been a great start to the season. Kyle, I'm dying to know, though, have you been sleeping and getting your rest as you talked about a while ago?
Yeah, so I talked about it a little bit last time, but I'm trying to figure out the things that influence the quality of my sleep, right? So I've been eating a lot more paleo lately, and it's kind of low carb. That's kind of how I was eating a lot when I did CrossFit several years ago. And last night I miscalculated. I didn't eat enough right before I went to sleep. And I woke up so hungry. So that was really annoying. But I was wondering, what are the factors, maybe the one or two factors that influence your sleep that you could name right now?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Yeah, food for sure. Focus. You know, if I'm excited about a project or I feel like I'm up against a deadline, like my head, I can't get my brain to slow down. So, yeah, focus and food. I don't want to go to bed full, but if I'm really hungry, it's hard to go to sleep.
Yeah, it's a balance. I feel like I'm setting it up, starting at noon or something, trying to pave the way for a good night's sleep. And once again, we have ventured into the old man talk.
Yep, that's kind of how it goes, I guess, after a certain age. So, speaking of old man talk, I'd like to file a complaint before we go too far. And it just happened this week, and I found it frustrating. It's probably no big deal, right? I like supporting local and small business when I can, but I also understand that small business, they're a little more autonomous, right? They're free to do whatever they want, however they want. Well, I found that to be wildly frustrating this week because I had a shirt custom embroidered with our logo. So a new shirt.
Okay.
So when we go places, whatever. So I went out of my way to get it done in a very short time frame because of work and the holiday of Martin Luther King a few weeks ago coming up and all that jam. So I got that shirt. I dropped it off like with 3 weeks to go before I really need it.
Right.
So the lady already has our file. I've used her before. Like, we're good. So she said, oh, it'll take probably 5 days. Anyway, well, they're closed on Sundays. They're closed on Monday for the holiday, which is my 2 days off, right? So I can't get there any other day of the week because they close too early and work. So I made a point to go pick it up on a Friday. I took a long lunch. It's really far away. It's like 30-minute drive just to get there with traffic and all. So I get there and they've got a stupid sign on the door that says, we'll be back at this time.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, really? Like, a corporation would never get away with that, right? So I'm like, oh, this is lame. But I'm only 5 minutes before their return time. So I'm like, all right, I'll just wait it out. They said they'll be back at 2:05. They got back at 2:25. But I couldn't leave. It's like, there's no other day I can get this. And I want it for a trip that is right around the corner. So I waited an extra 15 minutes after driving 30 minutes out of the way. And in my head, Kyle, I'm like, all right, whatever, it's small business. But also, is it really worth driving that far to support small business? Like, there's got to be somebody closer to me that's also a small business.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a noble cause, but sometimes convenience is king, right?
Yeah, I found that frustrating. That wasn't fun for me. But their work is pretty incredible. So I guess there's pros and cons to
Yeah.
using them.
Yeah, maybe they know that. They're like, our work is good, so we can be late if we want.
We'll do what we want. They'll be back.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kyle, I thought we'd dig a little deeper in today's episode to something you talked about last time is this hunt for a PCA, right? What you intend to do this year is hire somebody to come in a couple times a week or whatever it may be to help you around the house, a personal care attendant. And it got me thinking how things like that can easily or quickly destroy somebody's perspective on their own independence. For others, it might be an avenue toward further independence. I know that doesn't sound like it could be the case, but it just got me thinking maybe that's a tough decision to make, to admit that you need some help and have a regular person who helps you consistently. So I thought we'd dig into it a little bit. So to start, I'm curious, could you or would you define for yourself what independence looks to you? Because I look at you and think, oh, you're still a very independent human. You're living alone, doing life, but it's also changing. It's always changing. So what's your take on independence today for yourself?
Like most things, just my view of disability, I think we talked about on maybe the season finale or something last season was our perception of disability, right? And mine has changed over time. I definitely would not have been in the place to be able to consider hiring a PCA 5 years ago. Well, maybe not 5, but for sure 10. Even if I needed one, even if one would have been good for me, I wouldn't have been in that place just because I didn't see myself that way.
As needing the help, you mean?
Yeah. And now my perception of disability has changed a bit, where it's like, all right, I need to do some things. I have some things I want to do in life. And it doesn't involve reaching the top shelf or walking on my own 2 feet to go do something.
Sure.
It involves raising money, finding a cure, and, creating community and maybe doing some bike rides in the process. And I can do all those things as a disabled person. However, if I have help, I might be able to do more or do those things at all if I can ask for help. But I haven't always been in that place, in this mindset.
Yeah. So speaking of asking for help, when you think, okay, I'm going to take on a task or a project or a chore and I need help, what's your gut interpretation of needing help? Do you feel like that's a sign of weakness? Or do you ever find like there's some strength in being okay with asking for help?
Yeah, I definitely can recognize in my perception of myself that there is still part of me that sees that as a weakness. There's no, I can't deny that.
Yeah.
However, logically, I can tell you that no, I don't think that's a weakness. And it's certainly not. Like, if I'm looking at somebody else asking for help, I'm not thinking of it as a weakness. But when I see it in me, there still is part of me that's like, no, I could probably do this on my own.
Sure.
And so, I think it's part of the solution, or maybe there's no solution, but part of the approach to this is simply recognizing that, realizing my perceptions are influenced by other things, society, things that I am not entirely conscious of, and realizing that and recognizing my thoughts around how I see myself, I guess. And, like I said, I don't know that there's a solution, but I think the first step is recognizing that.
No, I think you make it a good point just at the top there. Logically, no, it's not weakness, but I'm with you in admitting and be able to recognize that there are times where I do think it's a sign of weakness, right? It's really hard to look past that.
Yeah.
But you made another point, right? When you were okay with asking for help or accepting help, it ultimately saves energy so that you could do more, or maybe stay up a little bit later and hang out with friends. When we're so committed to doing it ourselves, that's exhausting because it takes a lot more energy, it takes a lot more time. So for me, I think of like work, right? I work in a building with no elevator, so there are stairs every day, and I don't have a problem with stairs. Like as long as they're handrails, they're not a deterrent for me. But if I have things to carry, or I have whatever, like more than just myself, I could use help. Now, Kyle, to me, there's a difference in how that help presents itself.
It's
right?
offered, or
Yeah, if somebody says, "Hey, do you need help?" I'm likely to decline because personally, I don't know that I need it. Do I want it? Absolutely. It's going to save energy. So when somebody says, "Do you need help?" I generally decline it. That's even if you know me. You could be my best friend. If you use the word need, like that sticks out to me. But if somebody's like, "Hey, let me help you," or "Can I help you?" or "Would you like help with that?" I have no problem saying, "Sure, yes, please. Okay, thanks." Here, you carry this. I don't even think twice about it. So I don't know if it's semantics in a good way, or if maybe I find some identity that I don't like behind that word need.
Yeah, because I have the same exact thing. I'm like, listen to what you just said. And the way I interpret that, I'm like, no, I don't need anything. Would I like help? Would this be a helpful thing if you had your input? Yeah, sure. Yes.
Sure.
But I don't need it. But also that just saying it out loud sounds ridiculous and so I think if we look at the intent is pretty much exactly the same, even though they're using different words.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's something to think about. I mean, I have the same exact reaction, but, talking about it like this, like, wait, the intent from each person is the same, even if they're using different words.
I guess that's hard to agree with or accept because although I do believe the intent is likely just to be helpful, I don't know that I would say that 100% all the time. Because I do feel like some people say, "Do you need help?" because they don't really want to get out of their chair and come open the door for you, but they will if they have to. But some people just run right over and open the door, or whatever the thing might be. So I do think there's some 95% great intent, 5% maybe not so much.
Yeah, that's true. And the person that says, "Would you like help?" is a little more thoughtful in their offer, right? They're thinking about the words they use, and that means something.
Yeah. Yeah, I find myself often when I'm offering help to others, whether it's a work thing or a heavy lift or whatever, physical or not, I tend to say, "Can I help you?" So I wonder how that lands with people. Because I imagine somebody even listening to this right now might say, "Nope, I don't like that phrase." I wonder.
Yeah.
what works for other people and what sits well with them. Not that we
Right.
have to try to make it all perfect for everybody, but I'm curious, would somebody
Yeah.
be offended because I asked, "Can I help?" or whatever? I don't know.
Right.
So, Kyle, obviously, we get our own opinion kind of set it aside, right? Everybody likes to be approached a certain way. So, with that aside, are there things that you've done to kind of create a routine or a system that works for you in terms of managing or balancing when you need help and when you don't? That's kind of a broad question,
Yeah.
but anything you intentionally set up in life to navigate the harder things to do when it's just you?
Yeah, I can think of a couple things, and one of them is about, just the mindset that I adopted when I was looking for a place. First, when I moved to Pennsylvania, then when I bought a house, I needed to take into account accessibility.
Mm,
Was I going to be able to get in the place?
sure.
You know, then like what's the proximity to the bike trail? That was my second thing. Am I going to need to ask for help every time I want to take my trike out?
Mm,
I tried to set a system up so that the answer to that question would be no,
mm,
because that's one of the things I love to do. And so just thinking ahead about those things and designing a life that fits with your abilities, I think, is an important aspect.
mm, yeah. So, are you able to hit the bike trail just from your front door? Like you just ride your bike out the house and make your way there?
Yep.
That's
I
pretty cool.
sit down on my trike in my place.
Uh,
I ride out the door. I turn around. I close the door. I back out, and then
uh,
I just ride down the bike trail.
yeah,
So,
that's cool.
yeah.
My last apartment was that. The bike was in the house or the apartment, and I would just roll in and out from the living room, and the trail was not that far away. That was a nice perk to that location.
The only thing I'm missing, and what I want to find, I just haven't put a whole lot of effort into it yet, is like a remote control that I can do on my sliding glass door so
Mm,
that I don't have to turn around and go manually shut the door. I can just roll out, press
sure.
the button, and then keep going.
Yeah.
So,
So sounds like you need a garage.
yeah.
Yeah, that'd be nice, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know that I've got anything big at that level of, buying a house that's functional. Certainly things I think through when I'm shopping for a house, I get on Zillow and dream every now and then or kind of figure out what I want to do and where I want to go. But little things, it seems minor, but a backpack is a game changer for me. Because I'm still using a walker, I'm
Hmm.
able to carry some things, but I can't really use a shoulder bag or, any other, grocery bag. So, especially at work, if I'm having to haul up a computer or bring it down because different locations I might work at or my lunch or whatever it may be, I stuff everything in a backpack. That way, both my hands are still free to use the handrail and to help navigate the stairs. So it's minor, but I don't really do a lot of duffel bags. I don't or shoulder bags because the backpack makes so much more sense in my own independence.
Yep. And to be able to keep those hands free for your walker or to
Yeah,
like put a hand on the rail or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there's 100 of those things that we do. I'm just thinking for myself, like every time I leave the house, I'm like, have I gone to the bathroom? Like, is there going to be a bathroom that I can get into in the place where I'm going? Like, is there a lip on the door? Like, all,
Mm.
those 100 things that are just like, oh, make sure I have my backpack up. Whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah, I've gotten more aware of utilizing a bathroom when it's
Yeah.
easy to do so.
Right,
And
right, totally.
so again, we're getting into the old man talk, but for disabled individuals or people that, it takes 5 minutes to get in the house and get to a bath, like those things make a big
You-
difference. So there are times
for
where I don't
sure.
really need to go, but I know I'm going to be in the car for an hour. So I probably should go
Right.
before I get stuck somewhere or I'm panicking.
I think those things can be a little emotional. Like,
Yeah.
I recognize in those moments that my world is shrinking because there's not bathrooms everywhere that I
Mm,
can use
sure.
or that I hesitate to use.
Mm,
And, there's a few other things like that that I'm like, all right, as my disease progresses, like these things are taken away from me. Not that I'm choosing something, like, no, they're taken away because of the pressure they put on my life and how I think about things.
yeah. Is there anything that comes to mind that at this stage of life where you're at right now that you take pride in being able to do it yourself? Like
Mm.
you would hate to you don't look forward to the day you have to give this up or get help to do this.
It's hard to pinpoint those things because I feel like they're coming.
Mm,
And there are people that live their lives having somebody help them with these things every day.
mm,
And I have so much respect for that. I'm thinking about just things like brushing my teeth,
mm.
transferring onto the toilet, going to the bathroom. Like,
Sure.
what, just everyday stuff that is, it might not be available to us anymore at some point. And
Sure.
I am not looking forward to that day.
I do appreciate that you point out others because the reality of it is, yeah, there are people that might listen to this and think, yeah, I've been in that position for 10 years, right? Or my entire life. So get
Right.
over it. But the reality of it is that the journey of disability and rare disease is so complex and different for everybody. So I do think there's some value in knowing and hearing how people manage and
Yeah.
navigate their hardships. And hopefully it's maybe encouraging to somebody who maybe isn't in a position we are, and maybe it's unfair to say, but
Yeah.
quote unquote, they're better off right now. And maybe they're concerned about some of the things that we're concerned about too, or different things.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know why, because I see you, our friend Kate, lots of other people that have FA or have other conditions that make driving different and
Yeah.
maybe challenging. But I know it's possible. For
Yeah.
whatever reason, I fear being unable to drive, or
Yep.
at the very least, being unable to transfer in and out of the car. I know there are lots of ways to navigate that. So I'm not worried that it's going to happen anytime soon or that one day I won't be able to drive. But there's like a nagging voice in the back of my head.
Mm.
It may not always be this manageable. And,
Yeah.
somebody that I don't work with every day actually threw that question out to a coworker who I do work with every day. And that person, they were talking about our team. And they said something like, oh, what time is Sean going to be there? And then asked, does he still drive?
Hmm.
And I don't know why that bothers me. Like,
Yeah.
considering everything I do and what everybody sees,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
what do you mean does he still drive? Like, I don't know. So that's been in my head for a couple months now, for some reason.
I think driving for me is a huge part of the independence. Like I was saying earlier, world shrinking. Like, just think if you can't go drive to work or go to the grocery store. I mean, you
Sure.
know exactly how it feels because you were in that position not very long ago.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I think that's a really good one to think about if that happens someday that I can't drive. I think that would really shrink my world and reduce possibilities.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're gonna be limited in how you shop for groceries, what you do for work, how you make money, how you get your errands done. It impacts so much of life, not just the freedom to go get a coffee or whatever benefits or perks there are to also being free to drive.
I think this is a good example when we're talking about the perceptions of disability, and the definition of independence. Because when you're talking about grocery shopping, there's so many ways to get it done, right? If you don't personally go there and pick out your oranges, you can, order them on any number of apps. You can ask someone to go get them for you. It accomplishes the same thing. I recognize that it isn't quite the same emotionally and in a number of ways, but in some respect, you're accomplishing the same thing. You're just as independent if you look at it that way.
Sure. Definitely harder though, because I may not care about an orange or an apple, but when I was doing Starbucks all the time, people would ask me at work, "Hey, do you want me to go? I'll get you Starbucks today." And I'm like, I would love to let you pay for it, but I gotta see it. I gotta be there because it may not. If it's too white or too brown, like it's gonna impact the flavor. Like, I don't know. There's silly things to be able to do it yourself, and I'm sure we all want that at some stage or in some area of life.
Totally. Yeah, no, I actually agree about the produce because, in 2020 I was using a grocery delivery service, but a lot of times I'm like, no, I don't want to eat my avocados next week. I need them ripe now.
Yeah. I would imagine, maybe I would say that's a hard part of changing independence. I don't want to say diminishing or losing, but as we not only age, but as the progression of our disease unfolds, I might become more and more okay with getting help. But the hard part is being okay with relinquishing some control or some influence over what my banana looks like, how yellow it is when it gets to or brown.
Exactly.
Like, nobody wants a brown banana.
Well, and we've talked about it before, is like when somebody pushes you in a wheelchair, no matter how much they are trying to be helpful, there is an aspect of their will being delivered onto the situation, and so same thing with groceries or whatever help you ask for. And so that's one of the really hard things about asking for help, I think.
I've never thought about it, but 100%. I know we've talked about it, but when I'm wheeling myself in the wheelchair through an airport or around a cruise ship, I don't care what people think. Like, I don't have any self-conscious stuff involved. But when somebody else is pushing me, then all of a sudden, I realized that I actually do have some self-conscious biases there, and I wonder, oh, what are people thinking about me? But
Yeah.
that never crosses my mind when I'm doing it myself.
Right. Well, and maybe it's because when we're being pushed, we see ourselves as the patient that needs help, And I definitely wouldn't think that other people would automatically see it that way just for that. But I think we certainly can feel it and see it for ourselves,
Sure.
Observing the situation.
Kyle, we've been rambling for 20 minutes or so, and I don't know that we've offered any value to our listeners on this conversation. Hopefully, there's something in there somewhere. But I think you made a good point early on. Independence or even dependence is totally defined by you. Everybody's going to have their own perspective. And as we said, we've said it probably 100 times in previous episodes too. Generally speaking, it's hard to accept help or to utilize a walker or to implement a mobility device, whatever it may be. But we've both have encountered, once you're okay with adding a walker or a cane or whatever that process is for the hard challenge, it actually tends to propel further independence. Like it helps you in a way that maybe you didn't expect.
Yeah. Once you get over the hump of this is going to ruin my life. Yeah.
Closing word, Kyle. Is anybody or anything come to mind that if you didn't have this person available to you, whether they want to be available or not, it would make life very different for you? I think I know an answer, but you give me yours. Like, who is somebody that has been a game changer?
Man, I could think of so many people, but one I'm thinking of that I've mentioned before is Matt Fritsch. I saw him, and he was a confident, strong, well-spoken, like, cool guy that used a wheelchair. And that was one of my first personal encounters with someone who I was like, wow, I kind of want to be like that guy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think it's people like that. Also my independence depends a lot on my neighbors recently.
Yeah.
And my friends and stuff. And so those people are game changers in my life as well.
Yeah, I guess I'll throw out two scenarios. You mentioned not being able to drive last year, and then most people know, like 5 or 6 years ago, had the femur hip injury, and in both times where life was the most difficult, Jen and Felicia, like game changers in the recovery process. Whether it was 5 days or a month, they helped me realize that it's not the end of the world, right? And then on a daily basis, like your neighbors, probably the folks I work with, if they didn't help me the way they do, it'd be fine. It's not like I expect them to help me, and they don't have to. But man, because they help me up and down the stairs and carry my stuff for me, it saves a lot of energy and time. I don't have to make multiple trips. And if that were to go away, I'd be okay, but it would make for a much longer day or a more exhausting day. So it might be small, but it's a big lift for me, and I appreciate it for sure.
Sean, since we're on the topic of appreciation, let's move into our thank you notes. Every episode, we like to single out one thing or person in our lives to show a little gratitude because we recognize that it has a good impact on our psyche, on the way we think about things. So, Sean, who do you have to thank today?
Kyle, I'm saying thank you to our friend Katie Lloyd. We had her on the show, episode 201, but she has a child with a rare disease, and she lives in Switzerland. And as we mentioned a couple times, I am going to Switzerland later this year to climb the world's highest or longest stairway. And she can see that mountain from where she lives.
No.
So, although she doesn't, it's not walking distance, it's a little ways for her, she's been an incredible resource for helping me navigate, maybe what towns to stay in or what villages that make sense for a group to be in a hotel. And although there's still a lot of unanswered questions, it's reassuring having boots on the ground in the area you're going to, especially when it's overseas. So, Katie, I appreciate you giving me so much help as the planning unfolds. And of course, Kyle, she's going to tackle the stairs with us. So I appreciate her being a part of the team. So thank you, Katie.
That's awesome.
How about you?
I want to thank a friend. His name is Ken Miller. He's an expert on home remodeling and modifications. He helped me do some simple things like install some drawers in my kitchen. And they were things that I couldn't do. Partly because it takes a little dexterity, it takes a few specialized tools that I didn't have, and some know-how, of course. So anyway, thank you to Ken for helping me out with a few things around the house.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken. And of course, thank you to our listeners for tuning in today. We want to encourage you to not be afraid to accept help when it comes your way, and maybe even encourage you to ask for it, because we've both discovered that allowing people to help actually leads to more independence, more freedom at different times and stages in life. We encourage you to check out our show notes. You can visit our website at twodisableddudes.com. If you're enjoying this show, please be sure to share it with your friends. And of course, as always, whatever podcast platform you're using, please take a minute and give us a 4-star or 5-star. However many stars you can give. Give us a review and a rating. We appreciate it.
We look forward to you listening again next week. Until then, keep living with urgency. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to stay connected.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player.